Arkansas has had some strange creatures reported from its mountains and rivers and swamps over the years. The galliwampus, the Heber Springs water panther, of course, the famous Fook monster of Boggy Creek. But today, we're going to focus on the ferocious gowrow, a man-eating 20-foot mini dinosaur or giant reptile that terrorized the Arkansas hinterlands more than a century ago, and maybe still does.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Weird World Podcast. My name's Carrie.
Hi, I'm Dean.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Carrie.
Another strange creature, huh?
A cryptid corner, but not necessarily a quick cryptid corner. Just a normal cryptid corner, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, but this is an interesting cryptid. It's, it has some attestations to its existence.
From 100 years ago.
A little bit more, yeah. Over 120 years ago, actually.
Oh, wow.
So first, let's talk a little bit about Arkansas and some of the strange things that we teased a little bit of them have been seen over the years in Arkansas. Arkansas sits in the kind of the south central part of the United States. It was part of the Louisiana Purchase.
You know, my grandfather was born in Arkansas.
Was he really?
Yep.
What's his name? He has a weird name because all your family have weird names. What's his name?
H. Ray.
Say what?
Harry Ray.
Yeah, but notice he went by H. Ray like he's a fashion.
He also went by Ray. It was weird.
Well, that is weird. The Mississippi River is kind of, I think, the eastern border of Arkansas. It's about 53,000 square miles. That's 137 square kilometers to everyone else in the world. It's pretty rugged land in many places. It's called the Natural State. That's their state slogan. And it's home now to about 3 million people who go by Arkansans, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. Arkansas, by the way, in case you're not from the United States, it's spelled like Kansas, but with an AR in the beginning.
Yeah.
Don't know why.
Should be Arkansas.
It should be.
Yeah.
It's Arkansas. Maybe that's what they meant by that. It has mountains and highlands to the north and west. It's got river valleys all, throughout. It's got some flatter, plains along there. A lot of cotton growing. It was definitely a slave state, a part of the Confederacy.
Yeah.
It had tons of slaves back in the day. It can get hot and humid lowlands too. It's got alligators. Alligators are in, I think, like the lower 2/3 or so of the state. It has alligators, which, as you know, terrify me. Yeah. Some of the early French explorers, including Jacques Marquette, who gave his name to a major university, and Louis Joliet, who gave his name to a major prison, they got down into what's now Arkansas, a pretty wild country. So Arkansas is famous for being the home of who? Who's probably the most famous resident or person who came from Arkansas?
Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton, former president of the United States. And it's also famous for being the only place in the U.S. where natural diamonds can be found.
Oh, do they have that place where you can just go walk around and find diamonds?
They do. It's called the Crater of Diamond State Park.
Yeah.
It's the only place in the world where anyone can just walk around. If you see a diamond, it's very sandy, I guess. And so people will go there and just kick around. If you find a diamond, you get to keep it.
Yeah.
And go home with it.
And semi-recently, a woman found a really big diamond.
Did she?
Yeah. They're
mostly very small, and they're also not great quality, apparently. But still pretty cool to have a diamond that you found on your own. So, I'm sort of a diamond miner, kind of a diamond hunter. I'm pretty good at it. Those early French explorers brought back stories of some amazing creatures that they spotted, allegedly, in those pristine wild lands of Arkansas. A French travel writer named Denard de la Harpe, me at the end. He expeditioned through the state in 1722, and he came back with some tales of these amazing beasts like giant turtles, bigger turtles than he'd ever seen in his life, and some truly monstrous bullfrogs. Now, I think I read said exactly how big they were.
Yeah.
So it might just be really big bullfrogs, and they know frogs in France, of course, because they eat them, just the legs anyway, but I guess he reported just gigantic bullfrogs there. I know. There were reports of huge bears, too, through Arkansas, which is kind of strange because Arkansas always has been and is now home to black bears, lots of black bears. It's unclear. It doesn't seem like, from what I read, that the grizzly bear, the really giant bear of North America, I forgot, lived in Arkansas, apparently. So don't know what he was talking about, but he talked about giant bears. He also talked about a vicious, huge panther or panther-like creatures, and came back and he wrote about this, and it captured the imagination of people like in France, but also in Germany, Italy, and even India, heard about Arkansas and how it's home to these really strange creatures
Yeah.
and animals. But there were also some really remarkably weird creatures, too, reported from Arkansas. And one of these seems to kind of be patterned after one of those big cougars because it's called the gowrow. It lived along the rivers and could kill with a hook on the end of its tail. And it was kind of like a water panther a little bit. It spent a lot of the time as equally at home in the water or on land. A not so close cousin was the Heber Springs water panther. It sounds like it would be, but that was actually kind of weird because it was sort of like the freakish love child of a cougar, but also a Sasquatch. It looked Bigfootish, but with cougar-y characteristics.
That doesn't make any sense.
It also was amphibious, though, and it lived both in land and water. And this water panther had a fur on it. It was said to live in the area of the Little Red River, and it would occasionally let loose with these, quote, hellish screams, unquote, for no obvious reason other than that.
Yeah.
That sounds really scary. I'm not sure what it was trying to do, but it had this famous cry and scream attached to it, which we'll see later, as does the gowrow. There was also a thing called the giasticutus.
Okay.
It was something like, it was really kind of a thunderbird, said to have wing from tip to tip of the wings, 50 feet.
Wow.
I can't remember what that is in meters. It's like 15. So huge. I mean, really kind of, it sounds like a variation of the thunderbird, a legend that's been in North America. Kind of. We still haven't done the thunderbird. I've looked into it a lot. I do want to do it one day. It's not clear that those legends ever meant an actual living, gigantic bird or not, but we'll see. But this one, the giasticutus, was so big that it said it could fly down and grab full-grown ox, and take them away to feast on them up in its rooker eyrie or whatever, something like that. Which they're,
that's a little,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The wings would have to be 1,000 feet long for that, just the engineering of that. Of course, Arkansas was also home to an episode that we did here. Episode number 278, as a matter of fact, a couple of years ago. Carrie, what was that creature?
Is that the Kelly Hopkinsville one?
It's not the Kelly Hopkinsville. This is also a cryptid, a really strange creature.
Is it in the river?
Yes.
Yeah.
The White River. Apparently they named most of the rivers after colors.
I don't remember what the creature
White
was.
The White River monster. It was probably a
fish.
manatee.
Okay.
It was huge. It was like grayish and brownish. It was 20 feet long. My theory is that is a manatee.
Yeah.
It was kind of a hard to spot water beast that roamed up and down the White River throughout the 20th century. And again, we covered it. Episode 278. So we won't need to talk about it anymore here. And of course, the last one before we talk about the gowrow, is the Fouke monster. Have you ever heard of the Fouke monster?
No.
Fouke.
I was going to say, how do you spell that? Okay.
That's how you spell it. Have you ever heard of the legend of Boggy Creek, Carrie?
Yes.
Of course you have.
But I don't know what it is.
It was one of the best movies ever. And it was based on the Fouke monster. It was this classic, super low budget pseudo-documentary. It was released in 1972, and it told this tale of this three-toed Sasquatch creature that terrorized Fouke County, I guess, these little towns and farms around that area of Arkansas and kind of southwest Arkansas back in the day, back in the 50s and 60s. And again, the film was released in 1972. It cost about $160,000 to make, which is a pretty good chunk of change for not super well done quasi documentary. Supposedly grossed over $25 million.
Wow.
Which, how much would that be today?
$7 trillion.
$7 trillion.
Did you see it?
Yes, I did. I
saw it
as a kid.
You remember it at the time?
Absolutely.
Huh.
It was phenomenal. I love that movie. I'm sure it would not stand up to a full-grown adult brain. But
what was it rated?
It
was probably
G,
that's probably why my parents didn't take me to see it,
because they only took you to R-rated movies and occasionally NC-17. Terrible kids. Anyway, no, it would actually be $190 million today. Yeah, that's the question about that, because that's according to the guy who made it, his daughter, who said like she read his papers or something like that. It's not clear. It did make a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
It made him rich.
Yeah.
For the time. And look for the Fouke monster episode someday soon. I definitely want to do an episode on that. It's great.
Okay.
But today we're going to focus on one of Arkansas' strangest creatures, the gowrow. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, by the way. It's Gowrow. Gorow. I don't know. I'm going to say gowrow, and I'm going to own it and maybe be wrong 100% of the time, rather than do what I usually do, which is to pronounce it 3 or 4 different ways.
Did you look up the pronunciation?
Did not. So, the story of the gowrow really starts more or less with the story of a traveling salesman and his hunger to solve a mystery about an unknown animal. So he's someone I would like. His name is William Miller. Again, as I mentioned, he was a traveling salesman. He was based in Little Rock, and he would hunt for buyers, whatever he sold. I never see what he sold, but he was one thing said he was the well-known salesman, William Miller of Little Rock. Really. Your traveling salespeople are famous in Little Rock. I guess in the 1890s, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. And so he would travel all throughout the state. He lived toward the end of the 19th century there. It's January of 1897. Miller made his way up to Searcy County in the northern part of the state. It's about 50 miles or so northeast of Little Rock. He had business up there. I guess he's going to sell some stuff up there. So he arrives, and he's staying in the little town of Blanco up in Searcy County. He's plying his trade. I'm selling combs, brushes, saddles. I don't know. But when he returned to the big city in Little Rock, he had a pretty amazing story to tell. And the Arkansas Gazette newspaper wrote it up in January 31 of 1897. The story goes a little something like this. So he's in Blanco for selling his hot water bottles, and he had... Before that, he'd already heard tales of this ferocious creature that supposedly lived in that area. So it's like, when I go up there, I'm going to look into that. So he did. It really piqued his interest. He claimed he didn't give the story much credence. He's like, I don't think I believe that, but I will look into it. And so he had business. He goes up there. He stays there for a while. And he goes, in my downtime, when I'm not selling diaphragms, I am going to look into this weird creature tales. He wrote, quote, immediately upon my arrival at Blanco, I instituted inquiries, and I was amazed to find that the people of the whole township and of St. Joe and Richland townships were in a fever of excitement over what they called the gowrow, which they described as a terrible animal which slaughtered cattle, horses, hogs, dogs, and cats. End quote. So here's the story. He's really interested now, and I guess it's been in the area. It's been cited, so he's in luck.
Yeah.
The townsfolk had tried repeatedly over these last several months as depredations or terrorizing the countryside. They tried to chase it down, to follow it back to his lair or something like that, but they were never able to do it. Apparently, it had some kind of hideaway up in the hills, because it would come down from the hills and attack a farm or even those little tiny towns and take their dogs and cats and horses and cows and things like that. And it would do that at night. So apparently it's a nocturnal hunter, it seems like. So the gowrow would, for instance, once it smashed its way into a cow shed on a farm, and it slaughtered every cow and calf and was eating them. When a farmer would interrupt it and hear the noise and go out there with a gun or something like that, it would take off. But it was said to be strong enough and big enough to be able to carry the cow that it was eating.
Oh,
intriguing! Very big animal.
Yeah.
The beast's name came from its horrific cry. Apparently that's how you name things in Arkansas. Mm-hmm. So what does that cry? It sounds like gowrow. I don't know. I'm guessing they said the name came from that cry. So it would bellow this horrible cry when I was out hunting in the dark forest. And as Miller said, quote, engaged in its devilish work, unquote.
Okie dokies.
Townspeople described the monster as being 20 foot long. It was some kind of a reptile or monster reptile. It's that's why I described it in the tease. It's like a mini dinosaur. It really does look like. I'll have a better description from Miller himself in a little bit. But it also had two giant tusks in its fanged mouth and very sharp teeth in its mouth, but with two very deadly giant tusks. And so, the nearest thing they could compare it to was, say, like an enormous lizard, but not quite, as you can tell with the tusk. And we'll hear a little more about what it had on its tail too. While Miller was staying in Blanco, a boy out hunting rabbits saw some tracks in the snow. I am not going to lie. I did not know it snowed in Arkansas. Apparently it does. This is it's kind of almost semi-Ozark country. It's getting up toward the Ozarks. So it does get some pretty decent elevations up there. I didn't think it was high enough or cold enough to snow, but apparently it is. And he immediately recognized this because them there is gowrow tracks. They're huge. He's seen them before apparently, or how to describe it. I don't know. And so the boy dashes to the nearest farmhouse. He tells everybody, babbles out a story. Hey, I saw a gowrow track out here in the snow. That's in Arkansas. It's not a good one. I don't know. I'm not, as you know, I'm not good at accents. And he says, and they're fresh.
Oh.
And so they said, let's do this. They immediately formed like a posse, got all the shotguns and their Winchester rifles, and they took off. They went and found the tracks, and they took off after that gowrow. They follow it in the snow for several miles. These are determined people. Okay. Carrie, it's killing their dogs and cats and horses and cattle. Yeah. So they're it's like, this is our chance. These are fresh tracks, man. And then the tracks unfortunately disappeared at a riverbank as if it slid into the river and swam away. So they are not done, though. They stay along the riverbank and they continue going in the direction they assume it's going along the riverbank and following the river until they come to this gigantic cave in the side of a hill or something like that. Apparently, there's a lot of caves in Arkansas. And it was just like really well hidden beneath sort of an outcropping of rock. So it's really hard to see. They stumbled onto it on the riverbank. Otherwise, you don't see it that well. So it's a great hiding place. There's also thick little copse of cedars hid it from most directions. So it was not even known in the area. People did not know that cave was there. I'll read from Miller's quote. The ground had been worn smooth from the water's edge to where the cave entered the rock, as though some ponderous body had been repeatedly dragged over it. We soon secured light wood torches and, nothing daunted, entered the cavern, where we were confronted by a sight which made each particular hair stand on end like quills upon the fretful porcupine. End quote. He is a phenomenal writer. It reads almost like 21st century overwritten creepypasta a little bit. It's interesting to me how the analogs are. Yeah. When these people are writing stories like this, they tend to overwrite ridiculously. I think in the 19th century there's a lot of that anyway. Yeah. So they have these torches. They're going into the cavern. And then, he talks about how it casts these distorted shadows against the shaggy rock. Okay. And inside, I'll read to him from again. There grinned at us countless skeletons and skulls of all kinds and sizes, many of them evidently those of unfortunate human beings.
Oh, no.
The gowrow was a man killer. Back to his quote. While others seemed to have belonged to horses, sheep, dogs, hogs, and wild animals that had served a dainty repast for the gowrow at some time.
Dainty, huh?
Dainty. So they rush into the cavern and they hide behind a giant boulder. And essentially, I guess the gowrow is not there. So they're going to wait for the gowrow inside the cavern, hidden behind a boulder, apparently at the front of it, and then ambush the gowrow when it comes in. That doesn't sound
like a very good move.
Why not? They've got Winchesters and shotguns.
So,
Carrie, there's a lot of them. They're well armed. I think I find their actions courageous and noteworthy. I don't know.
And they could get stuck in there.
They could become a dainty repast. Is true.
Exactly.
So, but I know they don't get stuck. No, Carrie, it's a big cave. Oh, by the it's going to hang out. Yeah, I suppose.
How do they know there's not a whole pack of gowrows?
I think they've always been seen as just a solitary creature. Okay. In fact, as far as I can tell, it's just one of them. It's a mutant. They were there about half an hour when they heard, quote, ponderous splashing in the river as though a great stern wheel steamer was approaching. And the next moment, a huge body of a sickly green hue dragged itself awkwardly out of the water and began wobbling its way toward the cave. Shall I attempt to describe it? Yes, William. Please do.
Nah, don't bother. It's okay.
Can you imagine? Okay, I guess I won't then. Its head was ponderous in size. That's ponderous twice in and resembled somewhat that of a man. Only two enormous tusks projected over the under lips, I guess from going down. His legs were short and thick and terminated into a webbed foot that somewhat resembled that of a duck's. Only each toe was capped by a vicious-looking claw. So think sort of a man-faced reptile-ish thing with short, not long. You get the sense longer than an alligator or something like that, but still fairly short, squat, webbed, and that end in webbed feet, but they have big claws, which is that's exactly what alligators and crocodiles have. Its body was covered with enormous scales, while along its back bristled a series of sharp horns. So it sounded dinosauric, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
Which came to an abrupt end near the root of the tail. The tail was thin and long and was provided with a sharp bone at the end, which the gowrow could wield as a sickle, and when enraged would prove a formidable weapon, end quote. So you can see the tail sounds like the Heber Springs water panther, whatever the hell that thing was, doesn't it? But so he took a picture and apparently there was a picture that went along. I can't find it. I do have pictures. I have drawings of it. Well, if we can find a picture, I'm going to look harder. If I can find a picture of the gowrow, we'll put it on our website, social media, wherever we put that. But I do have a picture. It does look a little bit. It looks like like a 20-foot, kind of like a dinosaur, but it has tusk and it has little like a hook, not a hook, just a sharp horn at the end of its tail. Which again,
you said he took a picture.
Yeah, he says
he had a camera.
He had a camera.
Wow.
Just at this point, I got the snapshot, which is printed with this article, with my Kodak, and then I gave the command to fire. So he is the best monster hunter ever.
Yeah.
He's not the dickhead who doesn't take the picture.
Yeah.
He's the guy who takes the picture in 1997.
Yeah.
And then, and only then, says fire. That's what I like about William Miller. The men fired in a volley, and when the smoke cleared away, we saw the monster writhing in the throes of death, but he died hard. It's not what you think. With his ponderous tail, again, ponderous. Just
what does ponderous mean?
Big.
Okay.
It also means kind of unwieldy, but he just said it could use as a weapon. So he lashed down a couple of trees as large as my leg. Apparently there are trees in the cavern. Let's be careful here. Maybe they, they must have got it before it got into the cave.
Yeah.
Right? They jumped out, said, ha, took a picture and said, fire. And so it swings its tail around. It knocks over some trees. It also cut off the leg of a poor fellow named Tom Brennan. He was formerly a section hand on the Iron Mountain Railroad, and last year worked on the section below Benton. Because we get a quick bio of Tom Brennan.
Did he die?
It doesn't sound like he did. I don't think he did, but he probably wasn't doing a whole lot of railroad work anymore.
No.
The missing leg. In those days, he didn't have prosthetics.
Yeah.
He probably had to have a peg.
Yeah.
Not wishing to see the monster suffer, very nice guy, I again gave the command to fire, and this volley ended the gowrow's suffering. The enraged farmers then sprang upon the dead beast with their axes and, more in anger than sorrow, hewed him into pieces. I then immediately returned to Blanco, and the next day, having transacted my business, left for Little Rock. From a careful examination of the photograph, which I made of the monster, I am convinced it is a pachyderm and is a combination of the hyenidae, parenthesis, hyena, and rhinocerotidae, rhinoceros. So he thinks it's elephant, hyena, rhinoceros mix. It has incisor and canine teeth, which apparently show that it has some relationship to the Ceratohynus, Sumatran rhinoceros of the Rhinoceridae today genus. These animals were supposed to have long since disappeared from the earth. Their remains are found in the Miocene formation. So he also read up on his archaeology. Good for him. His paleontology. Or wait, would that be archaeology or paleontology? What is it?
I don't know.
I can't remember. In all probability, the specimen was the last of his kind. He's just pretty sure.
Yeah.
I regret very much that it was killed, as it would have been of vast interest to scientists and would have afforded a rare opportunity for gathering trustworthy information as to the characteristics of prehistoric animals. Sure. I have, however, made arrangements for the gathering of the bones and for their shipment to the Smithsonian Institute at Washington, D.C., end quote, where to this day it can be seen. Oh, wait, that's right. No, it can't. It, unfortunately, never arrived at Washington, D.C. When they asked him about it, he thought, okay, I think someone stole it and kept it for themselves. So he's put, because I sent it. So that's bullshit. That was Miller's story.
Yeah.
So that was the first time the gowrow became kind of, famous and well known. But it wasn't the first time it had been heard of, apparently. A few years before, a guy named E.J. Rose, he had a place called Devil's Hole near Boone County, Arkansas, because, again, we've lost the ability to name things in a cool way.
Didn't we just do some...
Devil's Hole?
With the Devil's Hole?
I think there's lots of different Devil's Holes throughout the world. Okay. So in this case, though, it was like this fissure, like literally a hole. And he decided, I want to know how deep this damn thing goes. And so he had several people. He got them together to help him out. And I guess they lowered him or someone else with ropes. And at about 200 feet down, that's about 61 meters, roads, he came to like a shelf, kind of like a ledge or something like that in this hole, this fissure. And nearby he saw an opening shaped kind of like a funnel. and it led to another chamber, a different, opening down there in the earth 200 feet below. He ascended for 300 feet into that chamber, which I think if I read that correctly, means he's 500 feet below. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
But it was too dark to determine the extent of it. So he thought, okay, you know what? I better get up. What if there's like some gases and noxious fumes or something like that? So he ascended. Now, they made another attempt to see how deep the hole went. But they didn't send a person down there. They sent a line down there with a piece of iron at the end of it. They heard a hissing noise when they had sent that piece of iron down there, that rope down there with the iron at the end of it. And so they pulled up the rope and the metal was bent. Something was strong enough down there in that hole to bend the metal. They then used rocks to lower again and see what happened on further attempts. But the last time the line was bitten clean through. Something could bend metal and bite through a thick, stout rope, presumably. Some people at the time said, we think it's a, quote, Indian spirit. We now call it a Native American spirit. Mm-hmm. But most people assumed it was a gowrow. And years later, people would still let go and, hey, that's the cave where the gowrow lives.
Right. Yeah.
Not sure why that assumption is made. I can't help noticing no one actually saw a gowrow in this story about a gowrow. Yeah. So, don't know if that really, Miller's Tale might be the first telling, because that may not be a gowrow story. It may be something else, though, just as interesting. We just don't know what it is. There was an Ozark area, he was like a folklore collector. His name was Vance Rudolph. And he also collected stories about the gowrow. It was there was oral tradition about the gowrow in this time, in this era. And he said he thought they went back to at least the 1880s. And he thought that the gowrow was some kind of a creature, but a race of something that we didn't understand, not just like one mutant, monster from a type of creature. He said that the young hatched, quote, from soft-shelled eggs as large as beer kegs, and the mother carried newly hatched infants in a pouch, end quote, which would seem to be a little bit marsupial-ish. Vance Randolph was the person who related that story that I just told you about, the person going down the cavern or the fissure. Before, one source said that tale was from about the 1880s. Another source said that tale about E.G. Rhodes going down, it was from 1935. So I'm not clear. Oh. So as far as I know, that's the only kind of official tales of the gowrow that I could find. Mm-hmm. So a handful, maybe one in the 1880s, maybe for sure one in 1897, maybe one in 1935. And then it's pretty much radio silence for the gowrow from that point on. And the gowrow, though, is, one person said it's considered kind of some of those fabulous monsters that have been in Arkansas folklore for a very long time. And that the article, this is interesting, I found this. The article in the Arkansas Gazette from January 31, 1897, is written by a man named Elbert Smithy. Yeah. Do you remember Smithy? Remember Alan Smithy? That's the name that directors who want to have their name taken off a movie, not be associated with a bad movie, call himself Alan Smithy. Yeah. Interesting. I wish I'd known that when we had done the Alan Smithy episode. And there was an illustration that was supposedly based on the photograph, but I think there's just an illustration. I don't know. Again, we'll try to find it if there is a picture, legit picture of the gowrow. I'm not sure there is or not. Yeah. The gowrow was actually featured in the 6th episode of the first season of a show called Lost Monster Files. It's on Discovery, so that's a very good indication of its honesty. It was called Cave Dragon of Arkansas, which is pretty descriptive. It seems kind of like a cave dragon, I guess. It just can't fly or breathe fire, but otherwise that seems fairly apt. This is a show about, I've seen the show, a couple episodes of it. I think that's actually like 3 people, like 2 dudes, and they're like, I don't know, outdoorsy kind of guys, and a woman. The woman is, everything's true, everything's real. Yeah. She's utterly credulous. The 2 guys, though, I think, take it pretty seriously. The whole idea, though, is the idea they got access recently to the lost papers of Ivan Sanderson. He was a very, very famous cryptozoologist, and they treat that, though, like he was this genius. Like everything he wrote was, for sure factually bound. He was a very sketchy guy. Sorry about that. He was one of the big proponents of the Minnesota Iceman, the clearly fake Bigfoot found in Minnesota, and he was a big proponent of that. So that kind of hurts your credibility when you believe in something that's such an obvious fraud. And was, really just literally a circus hoax. So they probably treat his writings a little too seriously, but I feel like they do. The good guys anyway. I'm not picking on the woman, but every episode she's like, oh my God, yes, for sure. This is true. This is, and they're going, you know what? I don't know. It's kind of a footprint. Let's look into it a little more. So that's the story of the gowrow. What do you think the gowrow is? What's your explanation for the gowrow?
Hallucinogenics.
Hallucinogenics. You think all those farmers and townspeople of Blanco, Arkansas, imagined that creature that they shot and then tore to pieces with. Apparently, they brought not just shotguns and Winchesters, but also axes and pickaxes and things like that too.
I don't necessarily believe every story to be true.
I see.
Unfortunately.
What do you think about an alligator? Or mutant alligator?
I don't believe there are mutant alligators.
No,
and wouldn't they know an alligator?
Yeah, you think they know an alligator. Plus, also, remember the snow footprints? Alligators don't run around snow.
I mean,
people have said that. People
maybe
have said some kind of alligator like
maybe
creature.
a larger than normal alligator, but they sure do embellish with horns and
the tusks
weird tails
and the horns on the
tusks and
the back sounds like. And scales, and then I love the horn on the end of the tail. How about a mini dragon, but it can't fly?
I mean, sure, but they don't exist in real life. So
God damn it! I didn't think about that. How about a surviving dinosaur that we've never found in the fossil record?
Yeah, I also don't believe that. Damn
it!
So.
Damn it! How about it's just a tall tail that someone made up?
Well, yes, exactly.
Damn it!
That's what I.
Damn it! God damn it! There's a story, another gowrow story I'll share with you that maybe leads into this final guess. And that was in the late 19th century. A Missourian went down to gowrow country in northern Arkansas, and he was able, I guess he found the lairs of a gowrow, and so he was able to get it to eat a whole wagon load of dried apples. He's like, I don't know how he did this. Did he send the wagon into the cavern or something like that? But his story was that I enticed it to eat so many apples that the body got so swollen that he couldn't get back into its burrow. I don't know if there's a cave or what, but so he found it outside, got it to eat a bunch of apples. It couldn't get back into his burrow, so he captured this now. I would venture to say ponderous beast.
Yes, and
he was able to put it on exhibit. So he'd get these tents, he'd go to town, he'd set up his store.
Wait, did he kill it or did he keep it alive?
Well, let's see.
Okay.
And so you get to see a living gowrow for 25 cents, just 25 cents, Gary, which is
back then, it's probably a lot of money.
Not a bad chunk of change.
Yeah.
Not $7 trillion though. I'm not even going to say that.
$10?
Maybe.
That's a lot to pay to see an animal.
So he would gather the audience outside the tent. You get them all in a little group outside the tent. Okay, we're going to go in there in a minute. Everybody pay a quarter. And then while the audience is waiting to go see the gowrow, he set up like a painting outside to show a gowrow eating a family of cotton farmers just to get them excited for it. So they'd be looking at this painting, waiting to go in and see it for themselves with their own eyes. And all of a sudden they'd hear just a horrible roar coming from inside the tent. And then someone would shoot off a gun. Several shots would be fired, and you'd hear the sound of these chains rattling and clanking against each other. And so someone would run out. Usually it was him, and he would look injured. He'd have like blood on him or something. He would stagger out to the audience and say, "Run for your lives! The gowrow broke loose!" And then the back of the tent would suddenly collapse. And you would hear, again, these roaring sounds would come, and these roaring chains sound would come. And the spectators would just absolutely flee in complete panic and never did get their money back.
It's clever.
It's very clever. So that leads you to believe how serious the gowrow was taken. In fact, one of the persons, Vance Randolph, the folklorist who wrote about the gowrow, he presented his material and he in a collection of tall tales from Arkansas, and the title of the book was "We Always Lie to Strangers." So that might come here. Anything in late 19th century is suspect, because we've talked about this before. The flying ships, the giant ships that we're seeing, and things like that.
Yeah,
this was an era where they wrote complete bullshit. It was not considered, journalistically bad. It was something you did it. And they knew, their audience knew. It was done with a wink. They never, and now we have these, cryptozoologists thinking this stuff is real over 100 years later. It was never intended for you to think it was real. It was intended to be entertaining. And we've lost that sense of entertainment in this desperate rush to make everything true because they have to make money on YouTube. So our worst yet discovery. So it's for sure, without any question whatsoever, an old-fashioned tall tale. It had its origins. It does seem like it did. These stories were being told throughout Arkansas and all over the country would have their own little local folklore tales, and monsters and things and monstrous creatures were in all of those things. Someday I want to do an episode on what's called fearsome critters, which is things like the hoop snake and the jackalope and things like that. They've been around for a long, long time. And it was sort of like a Liars Club thing. It's just you'd one up people at the bar with increasingly ludicrous tales and exaggerated. So it would grow tusk and have a tail. Oh, well, this one had a tail with a horn at the end, and it would slice down trees, and it could carry off a cow, et cetera, et cetera. So
jackalopes are just adorable.
Jackalope, I still want a jackalope to this day. We have to. Someday I'm going to have a pet jackalope. You watch. So that is the tale of the gowrow, one of the most amazing creatures of the great state of Arkansas.
Too bad it never existed.
I'm 90-10. I'm not going to tell you which direction.
Okay.
So, anything else, Kara? Anything else to talk about? You good?
Yeah,
okay.
good. Thanks.
Okay. Until next time.
Thanks for asking.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Bye.